between these two guys.
It's 5 and we're live. You know what to do. It's Tuesday. So you came here to break on through. With me, your host, Jeffrey K. Clayton, the long-haired weirdo. And you may have noticed I got a special guest today. The minister of propaganda, Mr. Malcolm Tent, star of Tent, Talks, Tunes. He's going to be talking some tunes today with me, old JC. And we're going to be talking about one of the greatest, if not the greatest, hard rock band that America ever produced. You may think, oh, y'all going to be talking about Foghat. No. But we are going to be talking about Grand Funk Railroad. Can you dig that? Welcome, everybody. Welcome. Great to have you here, Malcolm, as always.
Good to be here.
Nice to have someone to talk to every once in a while.
About Grand Funk.
Yeah. And, you know, at least I can hear your words. I don't have to read them. Said, there's no way I'm going to be able to read that today that far off.
Well, that's why I brought my dollar store cheaters, so I can be the interpreter. They look really good, too, man. You like my color scheme?
They are cool.
They're like a cool lime green.
I used to live in a trailer that was that color, white and black.
Wow. That must have been 1970. Fill in the blank.
Probably 1970 until 1974.
Right on. That's when a color scheme was a color scheme, you know?
Yep.
Refrigerators looked like that.
It made sense.
It made a lot of sense.
Tile.
Yeah. Bathroom floors. Totally. You could probably walk into any Stuckey's in this great land of ours and see this color somewhere.
Like on the roof.
On the roof, for example. Dude, I don't know if the people out there realize how awesome and wonderful Stuckey's was. There's
still some around, but they're your run-of-the-mill truck stop gas station, convenience store now. Stuckey's used to be a thing.
Stuckey's was major. One of my cherished possessions. And you can appreciate possessions because the people out there, they can't see the panoramic vista of just sheer stuff that surrounds us here on Break On Through headquarters. You can appreciate stuff. I can appreciate stuff. I have an honest-to-God Stuckey's roof tile.
Really?
Yes, in my possession.
Yeah, we were having a small discussion before we went live in cyberspace about how Malcolm's got so much stuff packed away and he don't have on display. See, I'm trying to display everything. I'm trying not to have things put away. Except, you know, my shelf full of magazines. You can't have those all displayed out. You know, but the boxes I try to make interesting. And I don't have any wall space to speak of, really, except for some small things. But I do have these beams that go across the ceiling. And, man, I'm going to utilize those. I'm going to utilize the space in between them. I mean, it is going to be right. Can you dig it?
I can dig it. I know that I was sort of wandering around looking at stuff, and I'm looking at things like from this angle and from that angle.
Yeah, I thought he was over there doing some afternoon yoga, but he was just looking at stuff.
Yeah, I was trying to see that autographed Janice Blythe poster, the one that's all in French. What movie is that, dude?
That is The Hills Have Eyes 2, given to me by Captain Catastrophe.
Yes.
From the great country of Belgium.
Yes, Belgium. Have you ever eaten a waffle in Belgium?
No.
No.
But I've eaten a Belgian waffle.
Okay. I just wonder because I have had pommes frites in Belgium.
I have too.
And well, I don't know what you thought, but I got an order of pommes frites at a street fair, and I think it was Mons, Belgium. And I was really excited because I'm like, in Belgium, I'm going to get authentic pommes frites. and I ordered the pommes frites, and it was an order of fries.
But did they give you a big glob of mayonnaise to eat with it?
They did,
Yeah.
which I disdainfully turned away. 'Cause, even before I took the world famous vegan vow, mayonnaise, I'm sorry, I can't do it. It's gross. Icky poo.
Okay.
Yeah. It's just a thing, man. It's just a thing.
Nothing but a party.
Nothing but a party, unless you bring the mayonnaise in, and then it's all over.
And it's all
just,
downhill from there.
oh, it's just a drag, dude. Oh, God. And I'll tell anybody out there right now who's breaking on through, you can invite me to the party. Take the mayonnaise out of the fridge. Get it out of the house. Otherwise, I'm going to turn around and do that pivot and be out of there. You got to treat your guests right. Oh, man. We're on fire today.
Yeah,
dude.
we're going at it, man. Well, when you're breaking on through, and I know I didn't do any plugs today. I'm not going to do any today, I don't think. Oh, yeah, I will. I got one plug.
Okay, because I got one.
If you happen to be in the Charlotte area, this coming Saturday night, you can go see live my main man, Jeff Williams, and his rockin' teenage trio, Stop Talking. That's the band name. That is not a mandate. I know you people in Charlotte, you love mandates. You like to be told what to do and how to do it and how long you're going to do it. But Stop Talking is the band name. So you will be allowed to speak at Tommy's Pub in Charlotte, North Carolina, Saturday night. So if you're in the area and you're going, there's nothing to do. Well, I just told you something. There's something to do right there.
I'm going.
All right, I'm going too.
All right.
We're all going to be there. All right, so you have a plug you'd like to issue.
I do indeed have a plug. And if anybody has ever seen Tent Talks Tunes, you know that I don't advocate anything unless I believe in it. I don't plug products that I don't stand behind. I'm standing behind this one right now. I'm wearing this fantastic, badass copper gauntlet made for me by the man, the practically mythological and definitely legendary Walt Wheat, the guiding light of the great Before I Hang from Hattiesburg, Mississippi. He made this himself, man, with a hammer and a piece of metal and a couple of magnets for my arthritis. And I love this thing, and I don't wear jewelry. And if you ever see me, I don't wear earrings or rings or anything like that. But I like this. This is really cool. So
It's really good looking.
Yeah.
I really like it.
I would suggest hitting up Walt Wheat if you want to adorn yourself and brighten up your otherwise dreary life and get looking as good as I am. For whatever that's worth.
There you go.
There you go. Walt
What are you
Wheat.
waiting for? I mean, you might be waiting for Break On Through to finish, but after that, contact Walt Wheat.
Yeah.
Walt Wheat's a very crafty guy. He crafted those ANTiSEEN tennis shoes.
Oh, yes. You posted a picture of those recently, I
those
believe.
those hang in the ANTiSEEN Museum.
Yeah. I have nothing but the utmost respect for somebody who can take... I don't even know what form of raw copper it was he used, you know. I mean, he might have taken a handful of Lincoln pennies and melted them together. But, you know, he made this.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have the skill set to make something like that.
Man, I wanted a block piece of wood with a dowel rod in it so that I could put stickers on it and roll them off, and I can't make that. I had to buy that damn thing right there.
Oh, yeah, right.
But it's
I
very
see
practical.
that. Yeah, yeah.
But, so, how does two people that have listened to a band probably most of their life, I would say a gigantic part of their life, how do you begin to talk about that band?
Well, maybe you say, if it were up to me, I would say in the beginning, there was Grand Funk Railroad. And I don't know about you, Jeff Clayton, but for me, that's a very accurate statement because my entire life as a rock and roller really honestly does begin with Grand Funk Railroad. And I've told the story a number of times, and I never get tired of telling it. And I'll give you all the short story, the short version of it, is that when I was 7 years old, my uncle bought me a copy of Grand Funk Live album.
Hold it up for the people to see.
7 years old. And I don't know if I can possibly convey the excitement that coursed through my veins when my family walked through the front doors of the Treasury Department Store in Hialeah, Florida, and I saw just like row after row after row of this album on the display rack. First thing you saw when you walked into the department store.
What year was this when you were 7?
1970.
1970.
1970.
So this was just released.
Brand new.
Okay.
This was the brand new album. And I just saw Mark Farner's hair flying through the air. I saw the guitar held at a dangerous angle. And I said, I want that.
That's number 3 for them, right?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes. And that
Or
was
number
it.
4.
Well, it was released before the 4th album, but recorded. Now, what's the order? It was recorded before, but released after.
On time.
On time.
Red.
Yep.
Closer to Home.
Yep.
Then live album.
Yes.
But it was recorded before Closer to Home.
Yes.
That makes sense.
And
Okay.
Mark Farner talks about me mistreater. He said, this is from our new brand new album. Comes out on the 16th. It's called Closer to Home. And then they do Mean Mistreater.
All right.
So yeah, see the water's a little bit muddied, but we're going to clarify them.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So that's how it started with me. How did it start
Okay.
with you?
Well, so you were a Grand Funker since 1970.
Mm-hmm.
My fandom with them began in, let's see what year this, I think this is 74. Am I right?
You are correct.
I cannot see that. Use your readers.
I just know.
You just know?
74. I'm in the business, so I know
All right.
this stuff.
Well, my fandom began with a track off this record right here. And now you can say, oh, yeah, well, I wonder what it was. Well, I'll tell you what it was. Locomotion. Now, you're saying, well, damn, is that the first time you ever? No, because I hung around older guys like my late great cousin Gary Smith. And in 1973, we were stationed in Biloxi, Mississippi. My dad was stationed in Biloxi, Mississippi, Keesler Air Force Base. And we lived, I talked about this recently, we lived in Cedar Lake Mobile Home Village. It's not a trailer park. Mobile Home Village. And I hung out with, some of the older dudes there that, would bring their stereos outside and, set up like DJ tables and just play records. And they were playing Red Album, Live Album. So I knew who Grand Funk was, and I knew I liked them. And, but I was just a kid listening to records being played. One of the songs really didn't catch on. But in 74, on the radio, Locomotion was everywhere. Very shortly after that, American Band or before?
It was after American Band.
This was after American Band.
Yeah.
So American Band was on the radio first, then Locomotion. What was the other big ones in there? Did they have any more radio hits then?
Not that big. I mean, like Some Kind of Wonderful the year after that, and Shining On was kind of a hit. But I mean, Locomotion and American Band.
But man, honestly, American Band and Locomotion was all it took for me. And I wanted the single for Locomotion. Yeah, man, the old man brought it home for me one day. So, man, I played that till the grooves were just like gray. I had no idea that it was originally done by someone named Little Eva. I didn't acquire that knowledge until much later.
Just out of curiosity, just to brief time out. What kind of a record player did you have in 1974?
Well, I had, it was all plastic. It was a mustard yellow shell top, white on the bottom. Turntable was white. Tone arm was white. It was one of the record players that usually required a quarter or something taped to the tone arm. Because you get a brand new record and you start playing it, and doing Evel Knievel jumps all over it.
Right.
But shortly after that is when I learned of that great scam, and you could do it without your mother and dad knowing about it until they got hit with the bill. The Columbia or Capitol Record Club. I guess it was Columbia House.
Oh, yeah, the Columbia House. They had the RCA Music Club.
RCA.
Capitol had one as well.
Right. Okay. Well, I probably did all three. Man, when I'm telling you, the first rock and roll record I ever got, I made a post about that this past week, was "Lollipop" by the Chordettes, and I still have the very record that my mom passed down to me. But until then it was kids records, and I was quickly getting bored with that. And so the next thing I wanted, I guess this was 1971. I wanted "Joy to the World." And instead of bringing me home the single one day, Dad brought home the whole Three Dog Night Naturally album. So here I got "Lollipop." Now I've got Three Dog Night Naturally. The next record that I would own would be Alice Cooper's $1 Billion Babies, followed by Grand Funk Shining On. I was like, now I can listen to a version of Locomotion that doesn't sound like it's on the train tracks, and got all these other songs. And man, I'm telling you, this is the one for me. And I know most Grand Funk enthusiasts like the power trio stuff the best. I mean, I love every album they did like that, all the way through Phoenix, all the way back to On Time, when they had the Ramones mix, the bass in one channel, guitar in the other, or maybe the Ramones had the Grand Funk mix. I think that's how that went. But this one is the one that turned me, like, I like every single song on this record. There's not one song I don't like. But it got to where listening to Locomotion was no longer a priority, because I've already fried my brain with that. So I was listening to all the other stuff. And two of my favorite songs by the band, it will always be in my top 10 are on this record. To Get Back In. And Please Me. A Don Brewer vocal and a Mark Farner vocal.
Right.
And I would like to point out something about Mark Farner's vocals right now. This is a fact that I learned from this man right here. Matter of fact, I think he exposed it to everyone here on Break On Through in a past episode, but I want you to tell him again. Tell him who Mark Farner patterned his vocal style after.
Yes, I'll be happy to do that, all you people out there, and especially since you've got the internet at your command and you can look up the great, and here comes the poetry, sorry, the great Howard Tate. Look up Howard Tate. Pretty much anything that was ever recorded by Howard Tate. Listen to that. Listen to the way the dude sings and think Mark Farner. It's right there, dude.
When he told me that day at Break On Through, I went to work the next day and found it on Spotify. I found this guy on Spotify, and man, it only took half of a verse before you go, that's it.
Yeah. Do you remember what song you heard by Howard Tate?
No, I knew I found 2 albums and I saved them both, and I just started listening to both of them.
Right on.
Yeah.
First time I heard a song by Howard Tate called Night Owl. That was the one. I got that on a 45. Because once I heard about the Howard Tate connection, I started really searching it out, and I finally found that single, played it, and it was just like what you described. It did not take long at all. The first which I can't hit, but yeah, that was it, dude. That was it. So Howard Tate, people, look him up. I personally guarantee satisfaction. If not, you're benighted.
So, where should we go?
Excuse me.
What direction should we go in for now? We got Grand Funk Discovery.
Yeah, we got the Discovery. Why don't we just go through the catalog and geek out over them? Start from the beginning and work our way toward the end.
A lot of people think that the one called Grand Funk is their first album, but they are wrong. Grand Funk On Time is their first album. And this has things that stayed in their set for quite some time. TNUC, Heartbreaker,
Are you ready?
Time Machine, Are You Ready? See, this produced a lot of staples. I was really fond of Call Yourself a Man and what's the other one here? Anybody's Answer. Two favorites of mine off this record. What do you got to say about this one, Malcolm Tent?
Well, it's not one of my favorite records, although it's got one of my favorite 1, 2, 3 knockout punches at the end of side 2, which was Can't Be Too Long, Call Yourself a Man, and Ups and Downs. And yeah, it's first Grand Funk record, but in a lot of ways I view it as a sort of more of a transitional record, because to me it sounds like they were transitioning from being the Pack to Grand Funk. And I know for a fact that some of the songs, like Can't Be Too Long, what was the other one? Heartbreaker, and actually Into the Sun. Those were all songs that they were doing when they were still the Fabulous Pack. And so they've got that kind of like garage band feel to them.
This has a garage band feel to it.
Yeah.
It really does.
Yeah.
I really like it.
And even the way it's laid out, 10 songs, 5 songs on each side, which as we will see in a minute was not the way they always did it. It's definitely transitional. You can definitely, if you hear the Pack and you hear On Time, and then you hear what's going to come next, perfectly logical progression.
So their second album was the world-renowned, one of the most popular record covers in rock and roll, Grand Funk. Most people call it the Red Album. Why, you may ask? Because it's red. Look at that. It's just red. Great gatefold photo of the boys, later used on Closer to Home. So I guess Terry Knight didn't want to spring for any more photo sessions. He was too busy pocketing all that good money he was making off the boys.
Yeah, and that's a whole source of controversy. I would like to mention, too, when you say Terry Knight, I've always said there's one area that Terry Knight, their manager, and if you all know the story, you already know it. If you don't, look it up. It's a really twisted, sick, Byzantine tale of rock and roll management, mismanagement, and lawsuits, and decades of ill feeling. What happened between Terry Knight and Grand Funk Railroad? So whatever people might think of Terry Knight, there's one area that I think was an undisputed genius, and that is in the graphic design department. And this is the first flowering of the classic Terry Knight style, man. It's just big, bold, solid blocks of color. You've got the dramatic, simple, and effective black and white inner gatefold sleeve. All the information you need, but in a corner out of the way. The typeface he used. I mean, the guy was...
And almost all the Grand Funk albums during that time period were gatefold sleeves, weren't they?
Yeah.
Almost all of them.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that was the first. I mean...
Well, the second would be Closer to Home.
Yes. We're going to get into the studio album, Sweepstakes. Yes. After that, Closer to Home. I mean... Look at that. Look at that.
Big and bold, man. That's not complicated. You could tell what it is from a mile away. God damn... Look over there, a mile down the street. Isn't that Grand Funk record? See, that's what's important. That's what people don't understand about graphics, man. Is you want it big, bold, and simple. Like when bands make flyers, they make all this intricate art and these fonts and it's got to look. Oh man, like you're a guy with ribbons in his hair dancing on top of the bus on the Gimme Shelter movie that Altamont. You know, man, when I'm having someone help me design a flyer, I say, look, at first glance, I want to be able to tell who it is, when it is, where it is. Bam.
Exactly.
That's what that does. That's Grand Funk.
Yep. And you'll notice too, excuse me, on the vast majority of their records, and I always think about this when I'm laying out record covers, because the deal is, if you're in a record store and you're flipping through records, you've got to know what it is. So I've never understood why bands will put their name or the title like down in the corner or in, you know, somewhere where you just can't see it. Mm-hmm. I mean, even though all you see is funk, you recognize that logo and you know what kind of funk it is, baby. It's the Grand Funk.
So on this album, they were still Grand Funk Railroad, but then they shortened it to Grand Funk almost immediately.
Yeah. Such a great name. I mean, just even the way it sounds, whether it's Grand Funk or Grand Funk Railroad. You can't say, oh, Grand Funk Railroad. No, it's Grand Funk Railroad. The name's got weight.
Yeah.
It's got gravitas. And look at that. Speaking of Terry Knight's classic black and white, stark, gatefold sleeve.
Gigantic picture in the middle.
Yeah.
Man, how many of you, when you first got this album, put the album on and just set the album up where you could just stare at the picture? It's only one picture.
Yeah.
But goddamn, if you didn't spend enough time staring at it, just studying every detail.
Yeah.
That's what you did back then when you listened to records, man.
Yeah.
That's what I do now.
It's the fun of it.
Yeah, it is.
And this really crystallized the Grand Funk sound. You know, like sonically, it went from On Time. I think they nailed it pretty good on this one. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's just bass, guitar, and drums, probably with some guitar overdubs, basically live in the studio. No real production to speak of. It's not drenched in reverb. It's not, you know, there's like echo everywhere. There's no bullshit. It's just three dudes cranking it out. And another one of the sort of trademarks of Grand Funk Records has got 5 songs on the A side and 3 lengthy jams on the B side. Mm-hmm. And they stuck with that formula for a while. Yep. Very effective. I mean, it's like impossible to choose what's best, but I always like the longer, stretched out songs on side 2 of a Grand Funk record. Mm-hmm. Like on the Red album, look at that, what you got. Winter in My Soul, Paranoid, and Inside Looking Out. You go to On Time, on to Closer to Home. Look at that. I Don't Have to Sing the Blues, Hooked on Love, and I'm Your Captain.
A 9-minute, 47-second opus.
And it's perfection. Your favorite person in the world, Michael Moore, said that, and he got something right. He said that I'm Your Captain / Closer to Home is a song that will be played forever.
Yeah,
forever.
It will be.
Forever.
That some bitch is right about that.
You know? And that's where, if I was going to be really, really persnickety, I would say, let's drink a toast to Michael Moore, but I'm not going to do that.
No, we're not going to do that. We will drink a toast to Closer to Home being played forever.
Forever.
Yes. Okay.
Of course, Grand Funk are not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
And you know what?
What?
I don't give a shit.
Yeah!
I'm going to tell you guys something right now. I don't give a shit about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Yeah, I went to the building. I went in it. But now they're inducting people that are not rock and roll. And well, they influence rock and roll. No, you know what? If there was a rap Hall of Fame, you best believe the Clash wouldn't be in it. So there you go.
Makes sense. I mean, I have been to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame Museum a few times. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll look at the artifacts all day and all night. But, yeah, you know, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame itself is just baby pictures for record executives. And I don't look at baby pictures, man. F that. And the very fact that Grand Funk are not in it.
The fact that Grand Funk ain't in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame will let you know it ain't got a damn thing to do with rock and roll.
Exactly. Mariah Carey.
And look how long it took Kiss to get in it.
Yeah.
I mean, you can like Kiss or not like Kiss, but to not say that they deserved a spot in whatever Rock and Roll Hall of Fame you had, it's ridiculous.
Because they are rock and roll. And yes, Tim is making a valid point there. It's just scrolling up, but he said James Taylor went into
The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame before the Ramones.
You know, seriously.
Yeah, Mark Deal, Thin Lizzy. They're not in it.
Right? Hell, we're not in it.
We're not in it.
I think it's all anybody needs to know about that matter. Sorry I brought it up.
Yeah.
God damn. Which brings us right back to live album, baby. And I
imagine a 7-year-old Malcolm Tent, probably wearing some turquoise sunglasses, maybe with a tiger head on either side of a plastic tiger head on either side.
That I got at the Dade County Youth Fair. Right. Yes.
With some white sunscreen on his nose, wearing some, I don't know, pink-colored flip-flops or something?
Probably.
Walking into that store and seeing that.
Yeah. Seeing that and just knowing that that's, you know, I've said it before, I didn't know who or what Mark Farner was, but I wanted to be that at the tender age of 7. I wanted to be that. And when we got home, and my father, he was the kind of guy, he always had to have the newest, latest, biggest stereo equipment. Mm-hmm. You know, like we haunted Radio Shack. He haunted the electronics department of whatever place he bought electronics. So he always had a really big stereo in the living room. And he would crank that mother. And so, for whatever reason, he said, okay, kid, let's see what this new record of yours sounds like. And
was he ready for that?
He was not ready for that. I mean, God. But
so what was the first thing he heard when you
well, first he was
the group you've been waiting to see.
Grand Funk Railroad, and the crowd comes up, and then all of a sudden, and this is where I wax rhapsodic, kids. All of a sudden, you hear the loudest, sludgiest, most distorted, knuckle-dragging, caveman, primitive rock and roll. It sounds like somebody taking a great big lug wrench and scraping it across the pavement for 80 minutes while Don Brewer goes non-stop.
And look what you got to hang on your wall.
Look at that. I have one of those hanging on the back of my bedroom door to this day. I have one of those.
I have one right here.
Yeah. Yep. We don't go home without them. And I just marvel at the fact that even when I was 7 years old, I needed to hear that volume, that distortion, the sound of Mel Schacher's bass overheating those West heads to the point where his roadies had to have oven mitts to take out the tubes between songs and put fresh ones in because they were going to blow up because they were so loud and overdriven and just completely ear-shreddingly blown up. And the guitar and the drums. You know, people malign Don Brewer a lot for saying, well, you know, he wasn't much of a drummer. That's like saying that any one of James Brown's drummers was not much of a drummer. Well, there's no flashy drum solos.
Well, you know what? You know? That's not a flashy drum licks is not a drummer's job.
No,
that's a drummer's vanity.
Well said.
I mean, you listen, like read the biography of Little Richard. And listen to what he had to say about finding drummers. You know, in the 50s and 60s, it was easy for them to find the kind of... But when he was looking for bands in the 70s, you already got people that are wanting to be John Bonham. And they were not content with keeping the backbeat, which was their job. That's their job. Keep the tempo, keep the backbeat.
Right.
Little Richard to do all the showing off and all the fills and all the thrills and the frills and all that. He'll take care of all that. Drummers just gotta and be on time. Lock in with that bass player.
Yeah.
That's all you got to do. And he was talking about how difficult it was to find drummers that could do that. Now, Grand Funk gets called heavy metal sometime, but I think they're way too good to have that tag on them. And that may anger some of you on here to hear me say that, but they're not heavy metal. It wasn't show off. It wasn't. It was just pure power.
Yeah.
Rock and roll is the only thing you can call this.
Yeah. And that's where I would get, to coin a phrase, high on a horse and do the whole Cream versus Grand Funk thing. I personally, I don't know about you, Jeff Clayton, I don't like Cream. I despise Eric Clapton. The main reason being that Cream ruined the idea of what a power trio is supposed to be. And it's everything you're talking about. It's about establishing a groove, establishing a rhythm, and giving the people something they can shake a tail feather to. You know, when you hear Inside Looking Out on this record, 12 minutes and 10 seconds of relentless, non-stop boogie. There are no drum solos. There are no guitar solos. They don't take 5 minutes to make people clap their hands. It's the sound of 3 dudes on the stage working non-stop the whole song. The groove never flags. The bass playing never relents. The guitar playing has the dynamics. Cream, and if you read the accounts of the alleged rock journalist Yawn Winner, you know, he'll go on about Cream, you know, and the virtuosic magnificence of the inspired playing. Man, that's just bullshit. That is 3 dudes up on stage jerking off simultaneously and trying to see who can shoot the biggest wad, you know? It's not interesting. It's a clatter. There is no unity to it. I could give a fuck about their version of Crossroads, the one that's always cited as being the archetypal example of power trio playing. It's boring. This is not boring. This is the real deal, man. This has got some dirt under its nails. This is not effete posing.
Man, there's some Cream songs I like. You know, but I've never been a really big Cream fan. And I was talking to a supervisor where I worked quite a few years back. And you know how when you you get into a conversation with someone, you like the person, but your views are polar opposites.
Yeah.
And you're just sitting there going, okay. He actually said this to me. He's like, you know, he loved Cream, he loved Clapton. And he said that one time he went to see, and I'm thinking he said he saw Cream and Grand Funk opened. Would that be right?
Could be.
Or maybe he saw somebody and Grand Funk opened. But he said, they said all Grand Funk was volume and a posturing. You know, they're doing this big, you know, alpha male thing, you know, just volume, and I'm just going,
yeah.
Where do I buy a ticket?
Yeah.
I don't want to see a guy who can play 9,000 notes and take a song into 100 different tempo changes and shit like that, you know. Man, this is what I want. I want cavemen. ANTiSEEN's always prided ourselves on being cavemen. Even when we got artsy, it was cave art. Now, I had some 8x10. There were 3 8x10s that came in. See, they were doing this thing that Kiss got the credit for. You know, making the records something a little special. Whether it be the gatefold sleeve, the printed inner sleeves. Then they started including posters. And then around this time also, they did a greatest hits comp.
Yeah, Mark Don and
Mel. They also had posters and picture sleeves and all this kind of stuff. This had 3 8x10s, and I have them all autographed by the 3 original guys, but I cannot find them for this broadcast to show you right now. But see, it now we're kind of moving fast because it's about time for us to wrap up.
Ooh, already?
Yeah, but it sounds like this might be a two-parter.
It's gonna have to be.
So the next time Mr. Tent comes to call, we're gonna pick up our talk on Grand Funk and start from what I guess would be the 4-piece era.
Yeah.
When they reached their commercial height.
And it's a whole different animal. It's a great animal, just a different animal, man.
It's just different.
It's a different
That's
animal.
all there is to it. But look at what we're doing for us fans now. Now we get a coin. Pluribus Funk.
1971. The cover says 1972, but he was, Terry Knight, again, an example of Terry Knight graphics. He was thinking ahead to the future. 1971, they were doing this. Look at that.
They even included a round insert.
A round insert.
With lyrics on it.
Eric Clapton never thought about doing that. Robert Stigwood couldn't come up with something like that. No. And then whatever record Cream put out or Clapton put out in 1971 was not as good as that one either.
No. And that Pluribus Funk and Survival are both Grand Funk heavy hitter. You don't hear them mentioned as much as maybe Live Album or the Red Album or Closer to Home. But not a bad song on them.
Survival,
not one bad song.
Survival just might be my favorite studio album by Grand Funk. It just might be. Like you just said, not a bad song on there. This one's a little more downbeat, a little more down tempo, but it's still got the groove. The groove it's just relentless. And the version of Feeling All Right and Gimme Shelter. If you want your heartstrings tugged, it's got I Can Feel 'Em in the Morning.
The other night I asked my wife, I said, have you ever heard Grand Funk do Gimme Shelter? 'Cause we heard it on a TV show. It wasn't the Rolling Stones version either. It was just a cover version of it. And I said, you ever heard Grand Funk do that? And she's like, no. And I was like, I said, it's better than the Stones.
Yeah. It's punk rock. And that's something else I always like to tell, because I deal with a lot of young kids when I sell records, and I do my business selling used records. And it's one of my missions to turn the younger generations onto Grand Funk. And I always tell them that in my mind, this pretty much invented punk rock. It's completely stripped down, completely overloaded. They were completely hated, really, by the press.
By the press, by the critics.
For sure. They had the controversial manager who really, in the end, if you want to actually talk about stuff like the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, that's probably why they're not in there, is because Terry Knight, he really alienated everybody. But his whole attitude was, fuck you, this is the people's band,
And who did that? Probably around the same time, but probably got even bigger? Led Zeppelin.
Right.
Except Peter Grant was their road manager, I guess. Or was he their manager?
He was the manager.
Yeah.
And
he was a really, really difficult guy. And but like Terry Knight, we can all give Terry Knight shit, okay? Because he did rip them off in the end. But what he did for the band while he was still in their corner is pretty damn incredible. And without him, I don't think we would still be talking about this band in the year 2022.
Doubtful. Very doubtful.
And I would bet the three original guys would probably say that too.
Yeah, all the interviews I've seen and read by them, they totally acknowledge that. And Mark Farner's position, from what I've seen and read, his position was he never trusted Terry Knight from the beginning, but they had to get out of Flint, Michigan somehow. They had to leave the Union Hall, and Terry Knight was the guy who had the motivation. He had the contacts. I guess he had the money. And I think kind of like Bernie Rhodes with The Clash, or maybe even Malcolm McLaren, he had that need to gratify his own ego and be, well, I'm the manager of Grand Funk Railroad. Look at me kind of thing, which I think was a big big part of the equation with them.
Yep.
And I'll admit I'm fascinated, utterly fascinated by the story of Terry Knight. I've delved deep into the rabbit hole of that guy's life, and this is where I make my appeal whenever I talk to people, or when I talk to the people now. Somewhere along the line there was an ebook published. It was called "I Who Have Nothing," the Terry Knight story. Pretty sure it was written by a guy named David Tedds. And that book was released as an ebook, but has apparently vanished from sight. Not a trace of it anywhere. So if anybody out there knows of, or has, or can point me in the direction, and I bet Mr. Jeff Clayton wouldn't mind reading it himself.
No, I would like to hear it from his point of view.
Yeah, I Who Have Nothing, the story of Terry Knight. Let us know. Hit me up. Hit up JC. Send an airplane with a banner trailing behind it. Something. We want to read that.
In other words, what Malcolm Tent is saying, you have got to tell us something.
Something about this ebook, which vanished without a trace. The same person who wrote it wrote a much smaller, more like a series of articles about blood rock. And it's damn good.
Well, see, if we had unlimited time, which if you listen to the Katie After Dark's morning report, you do not have unlimited time. But we could branch off from Grand Funk, go into blood rock, and like we've already talked about the pack a little bit. There's that little transition period between the pack and Grand Funk where they were doing some things, but we are out of time. I don't like to break on through a big ordeal for the people. I want the people to chug down the rest of their break on through brew and get on in the kitchen and fix them some dinner. And I promise you that the next time Malcolm Tent is in town, which is going to be end of March. So you just come down a few days before.
Yeah.
We'll get in some practice. And we'll get in a little break on through, where we'll do Grand Funk Railroad Part 2. Can you dig it? From myself, the unimpeachable president for life, and the minister of propaganda, Malcolm Tent, we wish you all a wonderful Tuesday evening. Thank you, Mr. Tent.
Thank you, Jeff Clayton.